Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. We have a great show today. You guys don't do golf shows anymore, do you, Dorothy?
No, we don't have any.
You used to have a show called Tea Time.
Yes, we did, a long time ago.
When did that end?
16, 17, end of 16, I think.
Yeah.
17, somewhere around in there.
I think Pat McGowan was one of the members of the...
Yes, he was on regularly.
And it was amazing. They would talk about the weekend golf tournaments, and they would handicap the players. They would talk about the people that they knew. Pat would always have stories.
Oh, yeah.
There were a couple of guys on that show that were like old sages.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And, golf was a thing, and it still is. And today it's more so than ever with, the USGA coming to Pinehurst.
Yeah.
With the demographic shifts, we have... Moore County is being invaded by young retirees, golfers, military families.
I like that. It's being invaded.
Right, growing by leaps and bounds.
Yes, it is.
Many times over the last 12 years, I've told the story, and you've heard it.
More times than I can count, but yes.
You know the story I'm going to tell you?
I'm pretty sure I know.
How I got to Pinehurst?
How you got to Pinehurst.
So I was living in Philadelphia. I was a couple of years out of college. Played about 100 rounds of golf a year. And I just got bored one day in February. It was cold, snowy, and I thought I worked too hard. So I got on an Air Florida plane. Air Florida. Remember them? No.
No, I don't know.
And I went to Miami. I rented a car, and I took my golf clubs, and I had nowhere to go. I just thought I'd go hit balls for a couple of days. That was it. And I wound up at a place called Boca del Mar, outside of Boca Raton, off Highway 95. So I was hitting balls on the range for three and a half hours. And I look out on the range, and there are all these young college, what looked like to me young college women with carts. They were picking up golf balls. They were raking traps. This is how I remember it. And then they disappeared. And I went in for lunch, and I came back out on the range, and then I looked down the range, and there are those same women, all, now they've showered, they've changed, whatever, and they're all hitting golf balls. One beautiful swing after another, and they were all playing together. They obviously knew each other very well. Well, one of those ladies is one of my guests today, Sally Austin. Sally went to University of North Carolina. I met Sally along with Mindy Moore and quite a few other aspiring amateurs. Maybe some of the ladies were trying to get their LPGA card at the time. And they were gracious enough to let me play a couple of rounds of golf with them. And now I had a place to be, and I didn't have to be in Philadelphia. And I'm playing with all these great ladies. And it was a lot of fun. And Sally said to me, "Have you ever been to Pinehurst?" I said, "No, I never have." She is originally from Rayford. And so she said, "You should come to Pinehurst and play at Pine Needles." And I did not know anything about Pine Needles. I knew of Pinehurst at the time. And I said, sure. So that July, I got in my car, drove down, met Sally the next morning. We had breakfast at Pine Needles. Maybe you'll remember this. And you and I and Bonnie played Pine Needles. We all remember things differently.
Yeah.
But you were the reason, I guess, that I've referenced how I got here. And I fell in love with the area and bought a little townhouse that weekend in Vass. Thought I was really hot stuff. And I would come down and play golf all the time. So we're going to talk to Sally because she has a resume and a history here that I want to share with you. And the guest to my left is Donna Andrews. And Donna was an LPGA player. She's a teacher today. She was from Lynchburg, Virginia. She won 7, I think, LPGA Tour events. Sally played on the Asian and European tours. You both went to UNC, maybe about 8 to 10 years apart, or how did that work
When
out?
did you graduate?
I graduated in '89.
Yeah.
You graduated
12 years apart.
12 years
I
apart.
don't want to make her older than she is. Make me older than I want to be.
Well, both of you grew up in the golf industry and the business during its heyday, where ratings were growing. Sally, you and I were talking before the show about when Nancy Lopez came on, how it started to really escalate. But I remember with a bunch of guys, we would always watch men's tournaments. We were all watching women's tournaments. And it was LPGA golf was a forefront of weekend entertainment, and there were some great players. You grew up in Rayford.
I did.
You've spent your whole life in this area, and you were the coach, the golf coach at UNC.
Yes, I was head coach there for 16 years, and prior to that, I don't know exactly. I was in and out as part-time assistant coach, and probably sort of full-time assistant coach with a very little pay, maybe for 3 or 4 years. But yeah, I kind of got there, helped the program get started, and never really left there.
You started learning golf from Peggy Kirk Bell. Was it sixth, seventh
I
grader?
did. I mean, she was one of my first regular teachers. My first lesson that I remember, my dad took me to Andy Page, who was over at Southern Pines Country
Oh, my
Club.
gosh, yeah.
But I only remember going to him one time. But I do remember his emphasis on the grip, which I appreciate. And as I started playing more and more, at that point in time, we could join Pinehurst from May to October for $75 for the summer.
Oh, my goodness.
Play as much as we wanted. And so Dad, on Wednesdays, he would get off work. He was an insurance agent, had his own business, and we'd drive in our pickup truck up here and park at the stables and get off on the second hole of number 1 and go play after 5 o'clock. And I attended a junior golf camp on Mondays during the summer that Parker Hall had started. It paid $1 for the summer and played on Mondays, and we could play as much as we wanted, play number 2.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then Dad's and Mother, I guess, too, because I'm a week younger than Bonnie Bell McGowan.
Right.
Ms. Bell was still in the hospital with Bonnie when I was born. And so when I came up for a lesson, Mother said, "Now you have to tell her that you were in the hospital and born when Bonnie was," because she came around with Bonnie and told us goodbye as she was leaving the hospital. So that just flipped switches with Ms. Bell, and I always theorized that she was so excited about that because she thought, okay, Bonnie's age, maybe she can get Bonnie to play more golf and go to junior tournaments. So I went to my first junior tournament with Bonnie. We went together. One parent or the other would take us and drop us off, and parents didn't stay then. We didn't really want them to be around then. We just drop us off at the tournament, stayed in private housing, did what we wanted to for 4 or 5 days.
So the picture you sent me of your golf team
Bonnie,
in 1977?
I think it was a 76, 77 team. Yeah.
So, of course, I recognized you. I recognized Bonnie.
Mindy?
I recognized Mindy. And there was a young lady sitting in the cart with Bonnie. I want to say her first name was Lynn. Anyway, I don't remember the rest of it.
I'd have to look at the picture, and I think I can still tell you.
But that was the first golf team at UNC. Prior to that, you didn't
Well,
have...
actually, that was my senior year. And I know that because Stephanie Cornegi and Susan Carey, who were first scholarship players there, was on the team. So they were freshmen my senior year.
Okay.
So we couldn't have fielded that many players the first year.
That's amazing.
We were lucky to find anybody. I was the only one who broke 100 in our first tournament, first tournament we played in.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We got
better.
How did you get to get the UNC job, the coaching job?
Well, I was there as an assistant, and I think it just kind of was a natural progression.
Yeah.
I was supported by Coach Gunnels and interviewed for it, and was fortunate enough to have gotten the job.
And you were there how many years?
I was there for 16 years as head coach.
So we share one of your students. We share as a dentist.
Yes, Mandy Kuhn.
Mandy Kuhn.
Grimshaw. Yes.
And did you know Mandy, Donna?
Yes. Oh yeah. Her dad did most of my team
Yeah.
before Mandy started practicing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's funny how quickly the years go by, but you were there long enough to have 2 or 3 classes of students come through, correct?
Yes.
You keep in touch with a lot of them?
I keep in touch with some. I'm not on Facebook, nor will I ever be on Facebook.
Okay.
And that's the best way for me to have to keep up. So I have to depend on, I told them I was actually with them this weekend. Several of them were down at CCNC playing golf, and we played. And I said, y'all just please remember I'm not on Facebook. So if I need to know something, somebody tell me. So I have to keep up that way. And then some of them, we just keep up, more so with some than others.
Okay. So you're kind of like a native. Rayford is close enough. But Donna, you're not. You grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia. You spent a career on the tour. How is it that you picked and wound up in Moore County?
So I played all my, amateur golf there in Virginia. And all the Virginia schools kept telling me, we're going to start a girls' golf team just for you.
Amazing that they didn't have one.
None of them had one.
That's crazy.
And I knew I wanted to get a business degree. And so it came down between UNC and Duke. And Duke only offered a 5-year undergraduate business degree. And UNC had a 4-year degree. And I loved Coach Gunnels. And I loved the campus when I went and visited. And it was only 2.5 hours from home. So just far enough.
Right.
But not too close. And so ended up going there to play for Hot Dot, as we like to call her. And we had a great team. And then when I was playing, we used to come here and practice some because it was always warmer here than Chapel Hill.
Right.
Anywhere from 6 to 8 degrees warmer here than it would be at Chapel Hill.
That's right.
Because of the sandy soil here. And so when I was looking at, after I graduated, where I wanted to go to further my golf career, I was like, you know what, Pinehurst is perfect. I'd gotten to know Don Pageant Sr. and hung out with him. I used to sit and have lunch with him and listen to all of his stories. He was Grandpa Pageant to me. And he had said, look, you come here, I'll give you a place to play and practice. So I moved in with a couple golf pros and started my career here. And I never liked Florida. I didn't want to go to Florida. All the other golf pros went to Florida, but I liked the change of season, didn't want to be too far from home. So this was perfect. I could go home and see my family and yet still work on my golf game pretty much year round.
I remember coming down to visit here in the 80s. After you and Bonnie had graduated, Sally, at UNC, every time I would come down, there was always somebody from the women's golf team at UNC passing through Pine Needles. It was almost, and I think you said it, or it was like a second home for them. And Mrs. Bell was very open to anybody from UNC coming down. Was that the case, Donna, when you were at school too?
It was. We were allowed to come and play and practice both there and Pinehurst.
Right.
And I first got to know Miss Bell through being able to play there. I didn't really get to know her well until I started doing some teaching when I was finishing up my career as a player. And she said, look, if you're going to teach, you need to come teach with me. And I said, okay, I think that's a great plan. So that's how I ended up over there.
The satisfaction you get from teaching versus playing, how's it different?
I would say I probably get more satisfaction out of teaching than I did out of playing. Playing was great. It was a wonderful career. The people I met will be people that, I have, as I say, I have families all over the United States because I used to stay with so many families when I traveled. But I always say seeing that one person do their happy dance when they hit the shot of their career or the shot of their life is so much more rewarding than it ever was playing on tour.
Yeah. Sally, how about for you from playing, competing to teaching?
I feel very much the same thing that Donna does. We're not doing anything to solve world peace or anything like that, but to see the joy people get and that aha moment when they hit a great shot. Or I just got a text from a gal I gave her a lesson yesterday, and she had a really good round today, and to see how excited she is, that's so rewarding, and that's where we get that's where the reward is, to see how happy.
Yeah.
Just hitting a good golf shot makes some people.
Yeah, exactly. And Donna, you, in addition to teaching golf, you also, like me, you're a real estate broker, and you work with clients, and you coach them, even though it's real estate and there's no 5-iron in sight. But there is a satisfaction sometimes from helping people, I guess, if you can help manage their expectations and set their goals, get them focused so they can go from here to there. That takes coaching as well.
It does, and there's a lot of similarities actually between teaching golf and coaching and doing real estate.
Right.
And the biggest thing is, I find with real estate is you need to listen to your clients. And so many, I work with mainly golfers that are looking to buy.
Right.
I don't do many listings or anything. I do mainly buyers clients, because a lot of time what I found was people weren't meeting their golfing needs. Everybody comes to Pinehurst and thinks, oh, I want to be a member of Pinehurst. But when you get those doctors that want to be able to walk out their door and play anytime they want to, Pinehurst isn't necessarily the place for them to be members. So I kept hearing that from a lot of my golf students. And that was when I ended up thinking, well, I need to transfer my Virginia real estate license down here. Didn't know I was going to have to sit through all those classes to transfer my license down here, but it was well worth it. And to see people end up in the home of their dreams, and to see the excitement they get when they get into that right house. Right. It's the same joy that you bring in people with their golf games also.
Yeah, it's true. Sally, you are now a resident of Pinehurst, but you didn't live here. You came back here in 2018.
Correct.
And I sold her house, just so you know. So
I was going to
Good
tell
choice.
her. I was going to make sure of that.
Good choice, huh?
Yeah. She did. So, I lived here, as you know, over in Pine Valley at a condo, and then I decided I was going to move back down. Frankly, it's just a lot cheaper down here than it was in Chapel Hill. My family's here. And anyway, Donna did listen. She listened to what I asked for, and I had to get that baby grand piano somewhere, and that was my number one. I got to have a place for that.
How long have you two known each other? Maybe tangentially initially, but
I was her part-time assistant coach when she was playing.
She was.
Is that right?
Yes.
So
that was a good team.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys go back 20 more,
85, 67. Yeah.
I can't even get the words out of my mouth that when I met you in 1979 that was 40. I can't say it.
I know.
To me, it seems like. To me, here you're getting older, because to me, 1979 feels like it was 20, maybe 24 years ago.
Yeah.
Wrong, Bill. 42 years ago.
It is. It's hard. It is hard to believe.
Yeah.
No doubt.
We're going to come back in the second set, having a conversation with Sally Austin and Donna Andrews, both local residents, both golf professionals, one a real estate broker, which really makes her very high quality. Multitasking, for sure. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second set of All Things Moore County. Our guests are Donna Andrews and Sally Austin. Both are currently today working as golf professionals, as teaching professionals. Maybe you both now have the opportunity to influence the kids coming up behind us all. But I want to ask you both, Donna, who are some of the teachers that inspired you or taught you or shaped you about golf that you can remember today? Because we all remember our 5th grade and 6th grade teachers, right? So you make indelible impressions, right, on your students. Who did for you?
Well, there was a gentleman at the club when I was a kid by the name of Steve Webster, and he used to come out and encourage us all. Most of us were what we called country club brats. You got dropped off, you went swimming, tennis, golf, whatever. So he got us all out playing. And then during my high school, Phil Owenby, who is now, I think, up in Virginia still as head of a club up there, would actually meet me before I went to school and would watch me hit golf balls because I was always doing sports at school. So I couldn't always get to the golf course after school. So he used to actually meet me before school and help me with my golf game a couple days a week. So he was probably the one that kept me going and got me to that next level when I started actually winning Virginia tournaments.
Right.
And then I was fortunate. I went to a Golf Digest school here in Pinehurst, met Davis Love Sr. During that, and started working with him. Unfortunately, he was killed in a plane crash when I was still in college at UNC.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, who am I going to work with now? And was fortunate. I qualified to play on tour and really didn't have a coach that I was working with. And we went out to Arizona, and I was out in Arizona, and I remember calling Mike and Sandy LeBeau because they used to be here with Jack's right. Daughter and son-in-law,
right.
and said, look, I need to drive up to Phoenix for a day and try to qualify for an LPGA event. Can I come stay with you? And they're like, yeah. And I was sitting there having dinner with them. And I said, Mike, I would love to be able to work with you on my golf game, but you're just too far away out here in Arizona. And Sandy looked at me and said, well, why wouldn't you go see my dad? And I said, well, he wouldn't work with me. And he's like, well, why wouldn't he work with you? I'm making a phone call right now. You're going to go see my dad as soon as you get home. And I worked with him my whole career while I was on tour.
Did you really? Jack Lumpkin?
I did.
The whole time?
Mm-hmm.
So when did you take when were you in the Golf Digest school? What year?
It had to have been 85, 86, somewhere in there.
I was talking, we did the Golf Digest school in 81, and Jack Lumpkin and Davis Love was there, and he left before the school was over to attend his son's high school graduation. And that was 81, I think, or 82. So Jack was your coach for majority of your career.
He was, and I actually was fortunate. I went down and worked with him right before the Senior Open here in 2019. I went down and spent an hour with him and worked on my game. And I remember him looking at me and going, your swing's better now than when you used to play on tour. And I said, yeah, it just doesn't go quite as far as it used to.
Sally, I ask you the same question. Your influence, your teacher, was it Mrs. Bell?
Yeah, I would say yes, for sure. And then later in my career, Whiffy Smith, I would have to.
Oh, I remember Whiffy Smith.
Yeah, and Bob Grant down in Florida. So
I remember
that's who
him
I went
too.
down because Mindy got me to go down there. So it was when I was in Florida, Bob Grant, and they were all good players, and they all
that's right.
were about playing the game and not just about the golf swing. So I was very fortunate to have been taught by people who could play.
And Whiffy Smith was a little out there.
She was kind of out there with Huckleberry. I always compare her like Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn somewhere. Shirley MacLaine out there hanging off a limb somewhere. But she's living in Albuquerque, and
she is.
Yeah. I need to get to see her. But she was the one when I was playing professionally that I would come home and we'd play, and she'd work with me, and so she was unbelievable golf swing.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah. So
I was very fortunate to have had great teachers and great mentors of teaching.
For people who pick up the pilot or were witness to the U.S. Senior Women's Open, which was the first one. I can't say that word, inaugural.
Yeah.
So I just go over. If I'm not mistaken, Donna, you were the first team off on the first tee for the Open, and Sally, you were the first off on the back nine that day, and part of
exactly
where they were, I guess, commemorating your allegiance and your loyalty to the club, your Moore County.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the pictures in the paper, and you have the tournament coming back up next year, the regular U.S. Open.
Yes.
Regular U.S. Open.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to have any role in that tournament?
Just as a bystander.
I told Graham whatever he needed me to do, I'd be happy to help. But I'm just a bystander.
How does
watching.
that? But that's exciting to have the Women's Open here again.
Absolutely.
The golf course looks fantastic, right?
It will be. Yeah.
Changes.
Yeah.
You guys have come full circle.
Yeah. Just shows how old I am.
Huh?
Just shows how old I am.
So you know what they say, right? The older you get, your eyesight may not be as good, but your vision is a whole lot better. Yeah. Your perspective, you see the whole playing field.
Let's hope something good comes out of just getting old.
Right. And so when you get to where we are, you'll say the same thing, Donna, I think.
Okay.
She's a kid, right?
She's young.
I don't know about that, but
but it will be the tour has changed. The demographics of the tour have changed drastically in the last 15 or 20 years, right? There's a huge European and Asian influence. American players not as dominant as they were.
No, I would have to say there are not as many that are as dominant. I think there's some young players out there that are Quarter Sisters come to mind right now. They're playing really well.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably are more in touch than I am with some of those gals out there.
Not really.
no.
Do most of the European or Asian players, do they go to school here? Do they come here to learn the game, or do they do it overseas?
The Koreans, there haven't been too many Koreans that have come and gone through the college system like a lot of the other Europeans have done. And less and less. I mean, when I started coaching, hardly any kids turned pro really early.
Yeah.
And then as I progressed in the career, a few would turn a little bit early, and now so many of them are just going right out of high school into the professional career. And the Korean players don't even come to college at all. Most
they
of
just
them.
go right out.
Yeah,
right.
most of them don't.
We've had lots of shows in the past with the First Tee. We've had a lot of people on talking about golf as a hook for coaching kids. Golf's a hard game. People don't understand how difficult it is. And yet it's a great vehicle for kids to learn self-discipline, self-control, the things that make a golfer successful can transfer into so many other phases of people's lives, especially kids.
That's very true. And I was involved teaching with the First Tee when it first started here in this
I'm sure
area.
you were. Yeah.
And I mean, they learn honesty and integrity and so many of the other things that.
Right.
I have two children. They're 12 and 15, and have gone through the ranks with them as far as the coaching and stuff, and playing lots of other sports. But I think the things you learn through golf are probably better than most of the other sports that they play.
I agree. And self-control. And are your kids golfers?
They both have beautiful golf swings.
Okay.
I wouldn't qualify them as golfers.
Okay.
My son hits it 240 now, and my daughter can hit it 180, and she doesn't weigh 80 pounds.
How old is your daughter?
She's 12, and she says she may play a tournament here and there, but she loves hockey. They both are ice hockey players, unfortunately, and so we drive to Raleigh a lot for that. But my son's a great baseball player. He's hoping to start catching. He played JV baseball at Pinehurst. And then my daughter just got involved with AC Sandhills in the lacrosse program there.
Cool. Great. Sometimes if the parents push them one way too strong, they'll go another way and pick up their own sport, right?
That's right.
Let's come back in the third set where our conversation is with former LPGA player and teacher Donna Andrews and LPGA teacher Sally Austin. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our third and final set of All Things Moore County. My guests are Sally Austin and Donna Andrews. We're talking golf, reflecting a little bit on their careers, and today they're both accomplished teaching professionals. Donna, I don't know what the title is you have at Pine Needles. You can tell me.
What is your title?
I don't know. It changes. Head
changes?
teaching instructor.
You had okay.
So I'm fortunate I don't do any time in the shop. So don't come see me in the shop if you want to buy anything. We have lots of golf professionals there that'll help you.
You do.
I only do teaching. So I teach we have 3-day golf academies. We have our week-long golfaries. I also do private lessons. and then I do some of my individual boot camps, which are 2 days of get everything you need to know to start off the season right.
Sort of like the old Golf Digest school mini version in a condensed
It is.
model.
We do a little bit. We do putting, chipping, full swing day 1, pitching, sand, full swing day 2, and then take you on our little short course and sort of show you how to apply all the lessons. So it's a lot of information packed into 2 short days.
And if you could, can you paint a picture of the demographics of the type of students age-wise? Are they young adults, retired adults?
I would say, well, with our golf Aries, we do all ladies golf Aries in February, May, and September. And they range probably, I would say, average age is between 50 and 60. Wouldn't you?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, about there. And they're all women. And it's like the guys' golf getaway. They come and learn golf, but they also do social functions every evening, hang out in the bar, have a good time. So it's sort of the girls' golf getaway.
And Sal, you work with Donna on some of these events.
She's kind enough to let me teach with her in the boot camp
Yep.
and golf academies sometimes, and I do all the golf Aries and really enjoy that.
All right, here's a really important question. I have 2 really important questions. Are men easier or are women easier to coach in golf?
I don't know that it's ease of teaching as much as it is different teaching. Okay. Men tend to be more mechanically minded, so you have to teach them and give them all the nuts and bolts of what build the golf swing. Whereas women tend to be more kinesthetic, feel-oriented.
Right.
So you need to give them more the visual and the feel of what it feels like. So there's a difference in how we teach the 2 genders. But when we have a golf school, we do it all. So we tell you what to do. We show you what to do. We give you all the nuts and bolts so that anybody, I mean, there's obviously women who fall into that engineering nuts and bolts. And I'm fortunate. I come from a family. My father was a nuclear engineer, and I was the kid that I say started asking why, and never quit.
Right.
God gave me my own son that does the same thing to keep me honest.
Right.
But that is what has allowed me to transition from being a player to being a great coach, is the fact that I do understand the nuts and bolts of what makes the golf swing work. And that was what I think was most surprising to me playing on tour, was how many, both on the PGA and the LPGA Tour, how many players don't understand what makes their golf swing work.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. With all the coaching and all the hype these days where players are traveling with their personal coaches and their gurus, and
that's why they have to travel with them, because they don't know how to fix it themselves.
Right.
It's surprising.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. So both you have to, and Sally, you can probably make a person in about 3 minutes when you're teaching. You have to know how to speak to their listening, right? Otherwise, you can't teach them.
Absolutely. And so over the years, what I have learned as a teacher and as a student, I have to, when I give them information, I have to watch and see, okay, how did they interpret that?
Right.
What does that mean to them? Because you can tell the same thing to 2 people, and one person is going to interpret it this way and one another. So you just really have to pay attention to how they process information. And I think, to what Donna was saying, there's a difference in men and women in how we process information. And
exactly.
If you just have to be in tune to that, I think that's so important.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing in real estate, Donna, with husbands and wives.
Absolutely.
You have a couple, you could be a marriage counselor. Right? I mean, who's a decision maker? Who is taking in what I'm saying the way I mean it to be taken in, right?
Yeah.
As you get older, golf is swings get shorter. What is your and I want to ask you both this question: what is your take on or your feeling about conditioning, exercise, and what type of conditioning? Because it does make a difference. Sometimes people forget, and then they just show up at the first tee and they complain. Do you work out? Do you recommend a certain type of exercise modality?
Yes. I mean, do I work out? I need to work out more, but I work out twice a week, and I try to walk.
Yep.
I don't know, 20 miles a week or something.
Yep.
I don't do that depending on how much I'm working, I don't get to do that every week. But I think it's absolutely necessary, and that's one of the things I've learned in the last probably 15, 20 years is how important your fitness is, and doing the correct fitness, and how your body type relates to your golf swing. And in teaching, I need to know these things about certain things. I'm not a PT, and I'm not an exercise guru, but I do know enough to recognize certain things with the physical limitations, strength, flexibility issues that I can send somebody and say, you need to go see so and so.
She got to play golf with my brother about a week or so ago.
Good.
And Ray is 65.
He's a good player too.
And he is so flexible at his age in his short game, where he his body is so well positioned, but he has a pendulum swing for a guy which is very rhythmic. He doesn't chop at the ball and hit down, but you could see how limber he was.
Yeah, he's fit too, very fit.
Very fit. It helps.
And I would say that's probably the biggest thing. People complain about losing distance as they age.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that they've lost strength. Most of the time it's flexibility and balance.
Right.
If you don't have balance in your golf swing, you can't use your flexibility to its best. And so, I tell people, keep stretching. You need to be as flexible as you were. I know I'm not. Things that I could do I was on tour, I can't do anymore.
You hurt your shoulder a couple of years ago, right? You fell off a horse.
Oh, that was many moons ago.
So,
I wish it was a couple years ago. But
so what? Okay, so do you have it? I mean, I had a torn labrum,
yes,
which I had operated on.
Yes, I did too.
You did,
but it took me. Let's see. My first tear was in 1999.
Wow.
When the men's senior open was here, I guess.
That's right.
And it took me 11 years before I finally fixed it. But mine used to dislocate. I dislocated my right shoulder 11 times before I had it fixed.
11 times?
Yes. The other one I only dislocated a couple times before I finally had it fixed. And then last December, I actually had to have my labrum fixed to my hip. So I've now had 3 of my 4 labrums fixed. And I'm still doing rehab and stuff for my hip one. It hasn't been quite a year.
So when you exercise, what kind of exercise? Are you an advocate of yoga, Pilates, just basic stretching?
I've always been, I like to run. And of course they told me I couldn't do that anymore with my hip. So I'm doing a lot of walking, but I've always been a strength person. I would like to work with weights. That has been what I've done my whole career. And I've done a little Pilates, never really cared for yoga. Probably would be good for me since I've lost flexibility.
Right.
But I enjoy the strength training and don't find time to do enough of it. My son's really gotten into it, so I'm hoping it'll motivate me.
Right. Yeah, you get to watch them come up now and see yourself when you were that age.
Yep.
Right. And I mean, you have to work around things. I've done some yoga, and I have been amazed at the increase in flexibility and the range of motion. It's not a race. It's a marathon. You just take your time, and all your life, if you're not doing something right, you've created a habit. To undo it, you can't do it overnight. Just gradually do it as part of your regime, and it's amazing the flexibility. There are people out there who advertise for golfers. We can help you with certain exercises to help your turn and this and that. But it also helps prevent future injuries, I guess. So, Sal, you're here. You are a permanent resident of Pinehurst.
Yes.
Your mom and dad raised you in Rayford, and even though they're gone, they still live up in your head.
Absolutely.
As your brother is here.
Yes.
And this is home.
This is home
for you.
Yeah.
And you are at a privileged position where you can do what you love and also look back and reflect, just like a teacher whose students come back to see them and visit, right? I mean, you've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot, and you've kept very focused. You've always been very hyper-focused. This sets you apart from most, because sometimes people will look to their environment to see how they feel about themselves instead of creating their own environment, which I think you've done. successfully.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I do get great pleasure.
Yeah.
Seeing former players that come back and play golf with a couple of them tomorrow. I hope if my ribs hold out. And played last weekend with some, and that gives me really a lot of pleasure that they will call and seem to want me to join them to play, and so that is very rewarding.
Yeah, and what I said was not a compliment; it was the truth. There's a difference.
I appreciate that.
A compliment is, that's a pretty colored blouse you're wearing. Donna, you have spent a whole life, and I remember the families when you're on the tour, the people that you become friendly with, the families all over the country, right, where you could go and always have a place to stay. That never goes away, right? So you've laid the groundwork for that. Do your kids understand what Mom did?
I think they do. I've been fortunate enough. I think playing the U.S. Open here was probably the grand culmination of them getting to actually go out and watch me play.
Right.
I was able to take them out to Palm Springs where I won my major championship, and they were able to see that golf course and see my name on the wall and experience that. So they're old enough now and have gotten to experience enough of it that they understand what Mom used to do, but they also appreciate what Mom does now. And they see it. I mean, Mom sometimes has to watch what she says with some of the coaches that they have, but I also I've always said my next adventure is to try to help teach coaches to be better coaches.
Yeah.
There's a difference in being a coach and being a teacher.
Right.
And so many of the coaches that they have are good teachers, but yet there's that handful that aren't. And I would like to help all coaches become better teachers.
Yeah.
And to work with the kids with what they have and not be asking them negative questions. Ask them positive things, tell them positive things to help them build and become better athletes.
You guys have a lot in common. One thing you have in common that I did not realize is your strength of convictions is unbelievable. You just have touched on things, but your points of view under the surface, very strong about your beliefs and your feelings about what works and what doesn't work. Neither one of you are wishy-washy.
Oops.
I don't think, and
No.
that's a compliment. I mean, I think that's great. This is going to be an exciting couple of years coming up in our area with golf and the resurgence of golf in Pinehurst with the growth of Moore County. It's a pleasure to have you on, Donna. Sally, it's great to see you. I'm glad you could hook up with Ray last week and play, and we got together and have lunch.
Glad that had to.
And I have plenty of friends who are moving here, who want golf lessons, who want to keep their game, get it resharpened, and we'll send you some people.
And just a plug, we have our Women's Open coming to Pine Needles next year. They're still looking for volunteers, so if anybody wants to go to the USGA website, it's done through the USGA. They can volunteer, and they can buy tickets to come out and watch the best women and golfers in the world.
Absolutely. Come watch those swings. You can relate much more to the women than you can watching men.
I agree with that. As a caddy, as a kid, I always thought you could learn more from watching a woman play than a man, because men would always overdo it.
And you actually would be able to see something.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Everybody, this is All Things Moore County. Have a great week.